Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council to order Monday, January 5th, 2015 at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now 6 p.m. Glad to see some folks come out. Hope those folks sitting at home learn a few things. Welcome to all of you. Will you join us with a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next we have approval of agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second. That was to approve it.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Next, we have beach nourishment, frequently asked questions. That's me. The first question I'll address, provide additional clarification of nourishment cost increases above those originally discussed when the project was first publicly discussed. Answer, in addition to quantity of sand due to beach slope and water depth, other factors included things such as planning for annual maintenance to meet regulatory monitoring and future re-nourishment in order to be eligible for FEMA assistance in the event of damage prior to the end of a 5-year life cycle when normal re-nourishment would be expected. Question, will the county contribution increase with the additional cost projected for this project? Answer, in fact, all of the increase in nourishment cost above what was originally projected for Kitty Hawk has been absorbed into the countywide beach nourishment occupancy tax. The town has not been tasked with any increase in shared cost or debt service beyond that originally proposed. Question, rationalize the 2-cent additional tax currently collected for storm damage reduction that will be removed from base rate and moved into the MSD rates. Answer, that increase was necessary to ensure funds for the aforementioned items and similar issues could be paid for. Council put that money into a special fund titled Storm Damage Reduction, so any money not used directly involved with the nourishment project could be used for other projects such as flood pump-out pipes, as an example. That said, money put into that account could be used by following councils for anything they chose to do. By eliminating that 2-cent unrestricted tax increase and shifting it into an MSD restricted account, future councils cannot use that tax increase for anything except to pay for the proposed nourishment project. Question, what was the formula used for determining MSD A rate versus MSD B rate? Answer, there is no special formula. Council used the North Carolina General Assembly wording to, and I quote, define special service districts within their borders and to levy additional taxes in those areas to provide services or facilities that are not offered throughout the unit or that are offered at a lower level in the rest of the unit, unquote. This is consistent with what the other towns are doing. Council members have discussed this question with many non-beach property owners and found most would rather not have to deal with the cost of doing a project, but understand that not doing something has an impact upon work, commute, and quality of life in the community. Conversely, many beach property owners were present or represented at the initial forum on October 2013 and were vocal in a desire to pursue a nourishment project. Question, the higher tax rate proposed for MSDA is discriminatory and unfair because there would be no town if not for the beach. Answer, The rest of council has not been consulted for this answer and should not be held accountable for the response. This is entirely my answer to the question. For 100-plus years, the village known as Kitty Hawk has existed without the beach being of absolute importance. Before intense development of the section east of what is now NC 158, the village of Kitty Hawk thrived. The beach area was used for subsistence, some recreation, and later for life-saving of seafaring men and women. There is no property owner alive today that could not have known, or certainly should have known, the hazards of building, along with the reward of living on the low-lying beach strand. People that chose not to live in that flood-prone hazard should not have to pay the full cost of protecting those whom knowingly chose to build there. Question: is the town planning to put toll booths at beach accesses, or will parking meters be added for non-beach property owners? Answer: the current council has no plan to install toll booths or parking meters anywhere in town. Access to Kitty Hawk beach areas will remain free the same way non-beach areas remain open to public access. Question: a third MSD should be added since the houses and lots east of NC 12 will realize an expanded lifespan with several spaces having sufficient dry sand square footage to support new structures. Answer: places where publicly funded sand is placed on a lot does not permit building or expanding structures based on the new sand adding to square footage. While sand placed on a private lot via easement remains in private ownership, the owner is not allowed to change by human or mechanical means that portion of new sand. If nature moves by wind or wave the sand anywhere else on the property, then the owner can use that material within CAMA limitation to his or her advantage. CAMA regulators have told town officials that no new or expanded building can be placed east of NC 12 in Kitty Hawk. That restriction is not expected to change as a result of pumping sand on our beach. Question: the oceanfront homes east of NC 12 should pay more since they really gain more than anyone else. Answer: 1 penny per 100 of the current evaluation for oceanfront property east of NC 12 from town boundary to boundary accounts for approximately $5,000 per year. The Hilton is included in that figure. The substantial MSD rate those homes and the Hilton would have to pay in order to make a reasonable contribution could be considered usurious and still insufficient to the total funding required. Comment: nourishment of the beach will impose additional requirements on property owners with regard to public access, sand fencing, beach pushing, or similar issues. Answer: the comment is correct. Council will be required to issue restrictions against removing sand, fencing, or beach pushing from nourished areas. Dune cut-throughs cannot be permitted. Public access to a publicly funded beach is acknowledged. Access to that nourished beach via private property is not permitted without the express approval of the property owner. Public access will be via public access points already established or those yet to be constructed. Question: excuse me. The town receptionist received a call from a man stated he wanted to get married in Kitty Hawk on the beach, and when could he expect us to have a beach? Answer: we hope the love is strong, patient, and will endure at least until the year 2016. We're trying to answer your questions as we get them. I'm sure there'll be more. I understand that the MSD packet should be in the mail, if not by tomorrow, by the 7th. The printer has assured us that will happen. So we'll have something more out there for you to look at and perhaps question. but these are all questions that have come to us, and we're trying to pull them out and give you answers. If you will, please network this information. It's important to everybody in Kitty Hawk because everybody in Kitty Hawk is affected in one way or another. All right, that said, now we need to get into public comment. Lynn, has anybody signed up for public comment?
No.
Does anyone wish to speak at public comment? We have one at the front and one at the back. Does anyone wish to speak at this public comment period? Let the record show, no one came forward. Now we have a consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, there are no current changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved, and we removed nothing from it, so 7 doesn't count. Next, we go into unfinished business. We have a conditional use permit application, and it's to construct 3 buildings, 2,520 square foot buildings to contain medical offices and a veterinary clinic at 5121, 5125, and 5129 Putter Lane. We have our new planning director, Rob. Welcome on board again.
Thank you.
And you're up this time. We discussed this at length, so we had the public hearing. We closed the public hearing. Council had some thoughts about where we wanted to go. Do you have anything that you need to add to what we already know?
I was just gonna do a brief reminder, you kind of already covered it, it's three buildings, each 2,520 square feet, to contain medical offices and a veterinary clinic. You'll remember the text amendment was approved at the last meeting that would allow the veterinary clinic by conditional use. It seemed the main point of conflict with last month's discussion was the access, the ingress-egress point to Putter Lane. I did have a chance to speak with the engineer prior to the meeting tonight, and he has spoken with the owner. Sounds like they'd be willing to install signs indicating no through traffic to try to ease the concerns of the residents on Putter Lane. I know another idea that was mentioned was signage for emergency vehicles only. But I guess I'll turn it over. There's really no new information other than signage. Sorry.
All right.
Is it on?
I think you spoke loud enough, we could hear you anyway, so, all right. Before I ask for a motion, Rob is right. I think all of us were concerned about Putter Lane access. The rest of this, quite frankly, meets the objective of the town code. So the question then before us is the Putter Lane and perhaps an additional condition for signage, as you've stated. In order to do that, we need to be sure we document why we're doing it. What reason do we have? And I'd like to point out a couple of things into the folder that we have. I'm going to ask you folks to come over on page 6. If you'll shift over to page 6. And what I'm into for the benefit of the public is the objectives that Kitty Hawk uses to justify or try to follow the land use plan. So if you're on page 6 and you look at objective 13E, the objective is to seek ways to provide and ensure a safe environment for pedestrians in commercial areas, to minimize pedestrian vehicular conflicts in commercial areas, and to improve circulation patterns in commercial areas. So what we have is a commercial area that has been laid out by the architect that takes care of those things, but because of emergency conditions and a fire hydrant need, we have to have access to Putter Lane. Certainly the property owner has every right to have access to Putter Lane. We all recognize that. What we don't want to do is increase commercial traffic on Putter Lane. Because that Putter Lane, frankly, is privately owned by all the property owners. It's not, I guess you could call it a semi-public street. You couldn't keep the public off of it, but the property owners own that road. The town doesn't even take care of it. So we want to try to keep that in Objective 13. And the best way, for my mind, to do that would be to try to keep commercial traffic off of that. All right. The other thing that had been tossed about was maybe a right turn on Putter Lane to take it down towards the medical center. Well, Putter Lane used to be one way, and it would have been a right turn. But there's two problems with that. First, that's a two-way street now because homes were building there and it required two-way street. If you tried to do a two-lane or a right turn there now, you would dump traffic onto the medical center. The medical center's got its own problems. That's not a good access in or out of. And if you go down Putter Lane, it narrows down to a 10-foot width where it exits into the medical center. So you got a problem there. And if you try to widen that, there is, I don't know if it's a cable box, but there's something there, sitting there in the middle of it, so you'd have a problem there. So we don't want to do a right-hand turn, and we want to keep the commercial traffic off of there as best we can. So I would say that under conditional uses, if we allow unfettered egress to Putter Lane from this commercial establishment, we will substantially injure the value of adjoining property, and it could be a public nuisance. All right. With that in mind, I'm ready to call for a vote, unless someone else has something that needs to be said before we vote, in which case we can discuss it after we have the motion.
Well, I do have some comments, but I'll wait till after the motion.
All right?
Well, one question. We're going to do emergency vehicles only? Is that,
I tell you what, I'll make the motion, because I was kind of thinking along the lines of adding one item. So here's the motion I'll make. I move to grant approval of this conditional use permit application to establish medical offices and a veterinary clinic at 5121, 5125, and 5129 Putter Lane, subject to the conditions recommended by the planning board, with the exception that the recommended condition 10 is amended to state, quote, the easements connecting the parking area with the adjoining parcels to the north and south must be recorded prior to the issuance of a building permit, close quote. There is one other condition, the condition that signage restricting access to Putter Lane for emergency vehicles must be erected at the entrance and exit of Putter Lane egress. Town council concurs with the conditional use findings in the staff report, finds that approval of this conditional use permit is consistent with the town's adopted CAMA land use plan, and finds that granting approval is in the public interest. So the additional condition that was not in the original readout is we're adding signage restricting access to Putter Lane. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have somebody sitting there, you know, a policeman or anything. It's just to try to keep traffic off a lane. Can we do that?
You can do that, and you need to find as facts to support that, the comments that you just made about why that needs to be done. And you could also include, as I recall, there was some evidence or testimony that this connection was made simply for the purpose of being able to get the emergency vehicles to the fire hydrants and get the fire apparatus and to the hoses to the fire hydrants, which would also justify the reason that it would be restricted only to emergency vehicles.
All right.
So I got a question. So the sign's going to say no through traffic, emergency vehicles only?
just emergency vehicles only, I would think?
Well, I don't think you can restrict no through traffic, but all we're doing is putting signage up.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm not.
All right. Now, the motion has all those other elements into it. Are you gonna be able to extract that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because I'm not repeating it.
I'll do it then.
Thank you.
Did you get a second?
Huh?
Did you get a
I
second?
did not.
I'll second it.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? If no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that one's out of her hair, I think. And what else do we have? Next, we have a site plan review. Rob?
All right, the site plan review, the applicant is requesting approval to construct a small corridor addition, about 74 square feet, connecting the Atlantic Dentistry office to a smaller office building on the same property at 3704 North Croatan Highway. In addition to the corridor, there's other minor site improvements proposed that would bring the site further into compliance and help out with some emergency vehicle access. The subject property is 35,563 square feet in size, and it's zoned as BC1. And we mentioned it's got three buildings existing. The two southern buildings are where they're proposing the connector. The use of it is permitted by right in BC1. The lot coverage, as I mentioned, some of the minor site improvements are to bring it further into compliance. A survey was done in 2007, and the property had 56.4% lot coverage. Between 2007 and today, at some point, there was some unapproved increases in the area covered by gravel in the drive aisles and the rear parking. If, with approval for this, they'll be removing some of that gravel to bring it back down to 60%. Right now, it's at 60.6% lot coverage. And that would total up to about 1,091 square feet of gravel that would be removed. The connection would also, currently there's an exit from the rear parking to the front, right where the connection's gonna go. They're proposing a new drive aisle that will be one-way exit along the south side of the property. Let's see, all the buildings comply with minimum setbacks. There's minor changes to the width of the northern access drive and turning radius of the southern access drive to bring it into compliance and better accommodate emergency vehicles. You can see that right there, and that'll be brought out to, or the radius on that end. The rear parking is only accessible via one-way access drive along the northern side of the property. The current exit, as I mentioned, the current exit is another one-way drive between the center and southern buildings, and that's going to be moved to the south. The proposed parking area meets the town's minimum standards with 28 parking spaces. The only other real change proposed is there's going to be some additional signage for one-way and do not enter signs where necessary. See them laid out on the property. The planning board, at its December 11th meeting, voted unanimously to recommend approval of the site plan for the corridor addition and the site improvements to Atlantic Dentistry at 3704 North Croatan Highway. Before I guess we go to any questions, late in the week, last week, and then into today, there's some new developments brought forward with it. The property to the north, there's, I guess, some, I don't know if you want to say disagreement about where the property line goes. And additionally, this gravel that's being proposed to be removed sort of connects to the parking lot next door, because evidently the trash trucks are coming in, emptying this dumpster, backing out and coming over here to get the dumpster to the north. And at some point, it started chipping away at the asphalt, so that gravel was added to protect that. You can see, if I can zoom in this. You can see where the gravel connects with the parking area to the north, and the dumpsters for the subject parcel, and then the dumpsters to the north where the trash trucks go in and empty theirs as well. The property owner to the north and the applicants for this have been in discussion, and they've kind of got some, I guess, plan Bs, depending on how the lot line discrepancy works out. This plan was presented today. You can see this is the property line as it was applied for. The red line shows where the property owner to the north believes the property line to be. This plan calls for gravel removal closer to the building and retaining the gravel in between the properties to, I guess, keep the protection of that parking lot area. I guess I can turn it over to Mitch Halloran, who's the engineer working on this, and he and the property owner to the north are also here. They can probably speak a little more in detail. I know they met for quite a while today.
Well, I wondered why Ralph was here. I didn't have a clue, to be perfectly honest, but I knew something was up, and I probably knew it wasn't good. But the first question I've got, Steve, can we even act on something like that?
Well, if either property line would make it compliant, you could, but I don't know the answer to that question yet.
Isn't there a survey? I mean,
Well,
It
is
sounds
it
like-
going to be, like determining the right of way on Kitty Hawk Road? Is
It
is that what we're up against here?
It sounds like, from what I gather, correct me if I'm wrong, there are two separate surveys done at different times, and the surveys say the boundaries at different spots. So it's trying to figure out which survey is the correct
all
one.
right, it seems to me like we need to put a hold on this.
Ralph, do you have clarity?
Yeah.
Okay. If-
Well, that was unexpected, wasn't it?
Sorry.
For the record, my name is Ralph Calfee, and in spite of all that you said, it's a pleasure to be here. Okay, with respect to,
Pull the mic up there to you, so.
first, the changes in the gravel along the edge of the driveway, yeah, that purely and simply has to remain, or there has to be a barricade, because the garbage trucks are tearing up the edge of the pavement on my property. And so, otherwise, I don't have a problem with it, and quite frankly, even though it is not a standard way of accessing one site from another, it works, and I don't think we ought to try to change it. It works way too well. Anything else isn't gonna work as well.
You're referring to the trash truck
The garbage trucks coming through, yeah.
coming to here and then moving, okay.
Yeah, the garbage trucks, they come in the drive, they empty the dumpster, they back up just enough to swing over onto my driveway and then get back to my dumpster.
No, I just wanted to clarify
And
that.
it works, and it's good.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right, the other issue has to do with this northern property line. And so we have a dispute of 2.5 or so feet as to where that property line is on the right of way. Back at the rear corner of the property, we agree with that point. And so what I asked that they do is simply show that the site plan will work such that no matter how we resolve this property line, either where they say it is, where I say it is, or anywhere in between, their lot coverage will still work, so that we're not playing a game of whether it meets site plan approvals and all that kind of stuff, because it's still absolutely workable, and I think probably could be handled administratively if there's an issue there. On that basis, what I've told them is, I have no objection, I'm not asking the town to not approve it because we don't know where that northern property line is. That's not my position at all, and I'm very much in favor of you going ahead and approving it now that they have demonstrated that the site works regardless of where we put the property line between the two extremes shown.
Rob, I got a question for you. Hold on just a minute, Ralph. If I understand it correctly, the fire chief had a lot of comments when it come to modifying driveways for emergency vehicles. That's over here on this page, okay. And what it sounds to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, this was not in compliance with at least current rules as far as access, egress for emergency vehicles like fire trucks. But in the process of getting this site plan to us, that problem will be fixed. It'll be upgraded.
Right.
Otherwise, it'll be grandfathered and not as usable as it will be with this plan.
Right.
So we're making headway as far as making things better in a lot of ways. All right.
And I will mention also the plan that's shown here that was submitted today. Mitch did it kind of as an exercise to show that, as Ralph mentioned, wherever the lot line is finally determined to be, that they can get that 60% lot coverage either way.
Okay.
And that could be, it could be verified through as-built drawings after the construction's done. If it's showing that if the as-built show that it's over 60%, we can, make them go in and remove more to get it to the 60% at that point. But this was, like I say, he wasn't committing to doing it this way. He was just showing that however that lot line lays, that they can get the 60% lot coverage on there.
All right, and if we were to approve this, you could take it from there. Because there were so many changes as far as the curves for the emergency vehicles and stuff, you brought it through the whole process. But if we approved what's before us tonight, then you could do the rest of it administratively?
Right.
Okay. Clear something up for me. Gravel. Lot coverage is dealing with being able to have rainwater percolate. And gravel percolates. The problem here is the gravel is being used as a parking lot. Is that the reason it comes into play?
To be honest, I think Joe mentioned in his previous staff report prior to me coming on here, I guess the gravel is, it's an unapproved parking area, but it was already an existing thing on the site, so we can't make them go pull all that out and replace it all with asphalt. I think lot coverage, I know when we're reviewing single-family homes, Donna has told me even if you're proposing not to pave a driveway at your house, that's still counted in as lot coverage. I guess I don't know if it has to do with the compaction or how it's defined, and I haven't learned that one yet, but I'm still getting there.
Okay, all right. Well, I think what I'm going to do is ask council if they're ready to.
Yeah. I want to ask one question, if I may.
Go ahead.
If we approve this tonight, there's a guarantee that this gravel area that is needed to keep everything straight with the property to the north and with the trash trucks, that is going to take place. And so the problem that would normally be associated with the property line not being clear, we're not going to be approving something that won't result in what's been discussed here. Because, we've got what we've got before us,
Right.
and that's what we're approving. I just want to make sure that
So, I just wanna make sure I-
basically the gravel's going to get in there so that everything is kosher, and then the property line will be established, and everything is hunky-dory. Is that correct?
The gravel already exists.
Okay, so that already exists. And so, but the problem is that something's happening to the asphalt on the other property, correct?
There was, before that gravel was put in
Before
place.
the, okay,
Now
so
it's-
it's
now it's
already
fine.
okay,
Right.
all right.
And then it said the original plan that was submitted called for that gravel to be removed.
Okay, now I get it. But it's not being removed, it's still there, but it's gonna stay there
It's still there to protect when the trash truck.
when the trash truck
Goes over.
goes up.
All right. Anyone else have a question?
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, then do it.
All right. I move to grant approval of this site plan for an addition to the existing Atlantic Dentistry Office Building at 3704 North Croatan Highway.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, you folks work that out. All right. Next, we have some calls for public hearing. First one's on a text amendment. It has to do with the Kitty Hawk Town Code. Rob, I don't know if he told you this, but normally we just call for this because if people have a right,
Okay, I wasn't sure how the procedure was, I didn't present anything for this or not.
we'll get you up here when it comes time, next time, to
Okay.
explain it. But right now, we're just going to call for it. We'd never deny somebody an application. Can't do that. All right. Do I hear a motion?
I move to set a public hearing for the town council meeting on February 2nd, 2015, regarding the proposed text amendment to allow vehicle rentals as a conditional use in the BC3 zoning district.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and next one, another, do I hear a motion for the next one, which has to do with the conditional use permit, Home Depot truck rentals?
Mr. Mayor, I move to set a public hearing at the town council meeting on February the 2nd, 2015, to consider a conditional use permit application to allow an accessory use of a truck rental business at Home Depot, 5300 North Croatan Highway.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, public hearing set. Now, we're down to reports. This went along pretty good. Town manager.
All right,
John, you're up.
Mr. Mayor, just a few items I want to mention to council. As far as our update on our contract with Coastal Planning and Engineering, they have completed 85.1% of the scope of work as of November of 2014. CP&E's work has included development of environmental documentation, beach fill design analysis, and data collection associated with the offshore sand search. CP&E has also been working on the plats needed for the attorneys to prepare the easement documents needed for the project. And in addition to that, I did talk to our attorney this evening, and he said that we're ready to go with sending out the agreements, easement agreements. So we're going to start working on that. Recently received some nice letters from Barbara and Jim Waldell of 5102 Putter Lane concerning the response of the fire department and our police department to several medical calls during the months of September and October of 2014. On September 28, 2014 and October 10, 2014, Officer J.S. Hines responded to a possible heart attack at the Waldells' home. On September 28, 2014, and again on October 10, 2014, Fireman Nick Opria helped to get Mrs. Waddell medical assistance at the hospital. Ms. Waddell was also complimentary of Fireman Jasper Rogers for his assistance to Mrs. Waddell on September 28th and October 10th, 2014. Also commended were Firemen Chris Dixon and Mike Basilone for the assistance on the same dates. Also, I received a letter of compliment to Kitty Hawk Fire Department for providing a fire drill for the Seascape Beach and Golf Villas In particular, the Seascape was very complimentary of Captain Cole Yates for his instruction on the use of fire extinguishers. And one additional item, I did receive a notification from the Outer Banks Visitors Bureau that we've been awarded a $17,647 grant for the Lillian Street Beach Access Parking Expansion Project. This grant is subject, of course, to approval by the county board, which I understand is just a matter of formality. And if approved by the county, the funds would be available in July. So we've got our grants, we've got our money, we're ready to go. But I have a pre-bid meeting tomorrow on the project, and so we're good to go.
Great,
That's all I have.
all right.
John, will that mean that we'll wait until after the season to?
No,
this
we're going to go
season?
ahead with the construction.
Do it in
We're
the
going to go ahead with the
summertime?
construction, yes.
We, hopefully we'll have that ready.
Have that ready before the season, yes.
Oh,
before the
okay.
season.
Yes.
The fact that we're not getting the money till July
Right.
won't matter?
No.
Okay,
will not
good.
matter.
I was hoping it would be ready before.
It should be.
Yeah.
All right, town attorney.
Don't have anything for you tonight.
All right, good enough. All right, normally I call each council member, but before I do that, I'm going to ask the police chief to come up. And there's been a lot of conversation about congestion at 158 and 12, especially during the summer months. And he's been working, even before that meeting that a lot of you might have seen in his voice over in Currituck, he's been working to try to get some kind of help for that issue. And that's what you're here to discuss. Please do that.
Yes, sir. Prepared a statement, and I've also provided a statement from the Coastal Times editor. The statement I want to release to the public is, in an effort to reduce traffic congestion and further delays at the US 158 and Ocean Boulevard intersection during the peak tourist season, the Kitty Hawk Police Department is coordinating to have a law enforcement officer stationed at the intersection on Saturday and Sundays on changeover days. Unfortunately, the Kitty Hawk Police Department does not have sufficient staff or funds to place a Kitty Hawk Police Department at the intersection during these times. Therefore, in order for this to be accomplished, Kitty Hawk Police Department will be enlisting the assistance of neighboring law enforcement agencies to assist at the intersection. The purpose of the law enforcement officer's presence at the intersection will be to ensure that the intersection remains clear during times when the traffic signal cycles. In addition to placing an officer at the Ocean Boulevard and US 158 intersection, the police department will have a variable mobile message board near the Wright Memorial Bridge. The message board will be positioned to advise arriving motorists to use caution and to do not block the intersection. If anyone wishes to discuss their ideas or concerns about the weekend summer traffic delays, they can contact me at the police department by email or phone. That's it.
All right. Some of the problems you're having, Chief, as I understand it, is, for one thing, I just saw, I think in a paper somewhere, that the state highway patrol is short of, what, 100 people or something
They're short 5 in this district alone.
in this district?
Yes, sir. They're soon to have 3 arrive, but they'll still be short. So I'm not sure of their availability to assist us at this time, and they will notify us later.
Okay. And the other towns, are they kind of, do you think they're going to step up? I mean, it's our intersection in the sense, like, obviously the state owns it, but it's our patrol area. However, the traffic that's congesting it is primarily going to other destinations. Are they going to step up and help us?
Duck and Southern Shores and the Sheriff's Department have all agreed to assist us. So there'll be 4 agencies definitely, and the Highway Patrol will be letting me know, as we get
Good.
closer to the summer months. So, yes, everyone is contributing. So that's
All right.
good.
And one thing folks need to understand, that's just that one intersection. We're not going to try to monitor any of the rest of them.
Just
And we're not going to,
158 intersection.
left turns at Southern Shores is a Southern Shores problem.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much, Chief.
Good job, Chief.
All right, now, rest of town council. Jeff, you got anything for
No, I
us?
don't.
Craig?
No, sir.
I have a couple of, one comment, and it has to do with the calls for public hearing that we had tonight for conditional uses on vehicle rentals. I would like for the planning board to look at vehicle rentals as being a permitted use in commercial areas with parking standards and maybe with a restriction on not having any vehicle repairs at the rental agency. The reason I say that is that we've had several requests come up, and I just don't see that the level of scrutiny that we have in a conditional use is required for a vehicle rental. You know, you go in, you rent the vehicle, you go out, as long as they're not doing repairs or don't have sufficient parking standards to make sure that there's plenty of room on the lots for the cars that are being rented and also for the people that are renting the cars. I just don't feel like it's a real need for a conditional use. Now, for truck rentals, you know, you can get into some big commercial vehicles that might be a problem. But anyway, it's just a suggestion. I really have never thought that car rentals require that level of scrutiny.
If I can, if I remember, you know, the ones that you're talking about back on the planning board, I'm not sure that I remember ever a rental business coming to us as a freestanding rental. It has always been in a grocery store or at a car wash, and we had talked about that on the planning board, and I think we would have looked at it totally different if it had been they were going to buy out the filling station and turn it to a Hertz rental car. I think we would have looked at it different back during the planning board when that came through. The scrutiny was the mixture of the businesses. That was where we had the conflict, not that it was a car rental back then.
And I understand that for this accessory use thing that, you know, comes
But
up.
I don't think we've ever had, since I've been on there, one that came, just was going to buy out a business and be freestanding that I can remember.
Well, I think the one that I'm thinking about is that the lot that had the convenience store on there and the fruit stand. According to what, when I talked to Joe about it afterwards, he said that that would be considered a commercial lot with different uses that could be available, so that, in effect, that rental that was proposed could have been handled as a separate business in a commercial lot that already had two different kinds of businesses approved for it. But, you know, that aside, the conditional use coming up now with Home Depot, I kind of understand that, because they have been treating this as an accessory use, and with the kinds of vehicles they could potentially wind up with over there, I think that we would need to look at that. But I just think it would be useful. I think the other towns pretty much have vehicle rentals without anything required in terms of a conditional use. And if it were in the code, maybe somebody would pick up one of these vacant lots and put a rental vehicle there.
I just think that, you know, like when we were on the planning board, we saw the confusion of the traffic flow with a fruit stand as well as a convenience store, and then renting Jeeps over in the corner. It looked like to me it was a parking, plus it was a lot of confusion instead of it's a straight set number of cars, parking places to fit them in the building. And and you know, it could be maybe two, or it could be worked out, but the way that we were presented the project is the reason that it was.
It's just a suggestion. If the rest of council, you know, doesn't think it's worth looking at, I'm fine with that. But I thought maybe that would be something that we could put into the code that might pick up on some of these vacant commercial properties that we have.
Well, I tell you what, I'm hearing that it's come up before and it's been kind of vetted. So since you're just bringing it up tonight, I think we want to table that and let everybody think about it. What I don't want to happen is for us to do something with unintended consequence.
No, I just
And
asking the
We're already
planning board
dealing with
to-
one of
yeah,
those, so.
Just looking for the planning board to look at it. I don't see, you know,
Well, it sounds like they already have, from what I gather.
okay.
But never as a free existing, like Hertz. We've never been presented somebody coming in and buying out that whole filling station and coming in and saying, we want to put a rental car business, not even, we've never been presented with a clear-cut plan for a car rental. It's always been mixed in with something else. That was, the reason that I felt like it wasn't that we were against car rentals, it was just the way it was proposed. And
Okay,
I
but
think
what-
most all of us would have certainly voted totally different if they would have bought that whole place out and turned it into a car place.
Yeah, the issue I had with the thing, and I think this even came up when I was on the planning board, was the EGEVs ago, but the issue I had was so many mixed uses on there. You had a fruit stand, you also had a grocery store, and then you had a beach rental at the same time. That's the issue I had. If they bought the whole thing, I'd have voted for it in a heartbeat and changed the zone for it.
Okay, but what M is really saying is the planning board should look at it as a permitted use with the whole, not an accessory. What I'm hearing is the planning board's already looked at it in at least one context, and the rest of you are not really enthused about going forward.
I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. All right,
Sorry.
okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
All right. I do have something, and that is, I called the lawyer dealing with the Overton property, and he told me that on the 15th of this month, they'll go before a judge, and they don't expect any problems getting the proper titles and whatever's necessary to get that changed over after Mr. Overson passed away. And there are people that want to buy it, so hopefully after the 15th, things will get moving pretty quick, and I'd like to see that place cleaned up. I know we all would, and hopefully that'll happen sooner rather than later. So that was a positive note that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
How about wings? We still,
I've got to check see if the time for appeal was run. I think it has.
Yeah, you haven't heard anything.
I know.
No, they had a judgment against them, and there was a time period for appeal. And unless they appealed, which I would think you would know about that.
Well, yeah, they did send an appeal to the Superior Court, but that's the wrong place.
Oh. That's kind of like a property line. We don't know where we're at. All right. Good enough. All right, well, it'll work itself out. It's going through the courts, just like this Overton property's been going there forever, too. Okay. Anybody else got anything? If not, this is our public comment period. Anyone wish to speak at this part of the meeting? Let your record show no one came forward. And now I'm going to call for a motion, but it's to recess. Do I hear a motion to recess?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, read it off, please. Get it in the record properly.
Move to recess to Monday, January 12th, 2015, 10 a.m. at Keyhawk Town Hall for the discussion of privatization of Ocean Rescue.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I started to say, any objection? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you for coming.